He was barefoot, homeless, just a boy no one noticed until he walked into a hospital room and whispered, "I can wake her." Lena Caldwell, the daughter of a grieving musician, had been in a coma for months. Doctors had given up. Machines hummed their quiet surrender. But then, a boy named Micah appeared out of nowhere. No last name, no explanation, only a strange calm and one impossible promise. How could a child with no medical training reach someone science had already lost? Why did Lena's heart rate spike the moment he touched her hand? And when she finally opened her eyes, why did no one know where Micah had gone? This isn't a story about miracles. It's a story about presence, about the invisible ways we save each other and how, sometimes, the most extraordinary voices come from the most overlooked hearts. So, before we begin, ask yourself one question. What if the person who wakes your soul is the one the world ignores? If you're ready for a story that might just change how you see the world, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Because what happens next is truly unbelievable. The monitors blinked without urgency. The rhythm of their beeps had become background noise, like the ticking of a distant clock in a house where no one was waiting for time to pass. Room 423 at Boston Mercy Hospital smelled faintly of antiseptic and old plastic. The blinds were halfway drawn, letting in a muted gray light that seemed too dull for the hour of day. On the hospital bed lay a 10-year-old girl, small and still, beneath a faded blue blanket. Her name was Lena Caldwell, and she hadn't opened her eyes in 9 days. Not since the morning she collapsed while brushing her teeth before school. 1 second, she was humming a song from the car radio. The next, she was on the floor, limp and unresponsive, her toothbrush still foaming beside her cheek. The doctors called it a neurological seizure cascade, a term that sounded like a waterfall but felt more like a cliff. They ran scans. They consulted experts. A specialist from Germany had even reviewed her case. And yet, they all landed in the same silent zone, unexplained coma. Spontaneous, severe, possibly irreversible. Next to the bed sat her father, Nathan Caldwell, elbows on his knees, eyes sunken from days without sleep. Nathan was a man known throughout Boston as the Builder. He had laid the foundations for half the high-rises downtown, drove trucks with his name stenciled on the side, and once refused a city contract because he said the blueprints disrespected the land's memory. Strong hands, quiet mind. No nonsense kind of man. But this was something he couldn't build his way out of. His knuckles were white as he held Lena's hand. It was cold, but not lifeless. Just resting, just waiting. That's what he told himself. 9 days, he whispered. 9. Baby, you win. I miss your singing already. She used to sing while tying her shoes, sing while eating cereal, sing while brushing the dog's fur. Her voice had filled their brownstone with something more than sound. Now silence lived in its place. A nurse entered, gently adjusting Lena's IV. "No change," she said softly, not expecting a reply. Nathan nodded once. He barely heard her. His mind was still inside the last morning they had together. How he had rushed to take a call while she was getting ready. How he waved goodbye from behind a coffee mug instead of bending down to kiss her forehead. He would have traded every skyscraper he ever built for 5 more seconds of that morning. That afternoon, Elias Granger had shown up in a helicopter. Elias was one of those men who wore silence like a Rolex, expensive, curated, and impossible to ignore. A billionaire philanthropist, biotech investor, and most notably the top donor to Boston Mercy's neurotech wing. He walked in with a team of 3 assistants and a confidence that turned heads in the hallway. "I heard about your daughter, Mr. Caldwell," Elias had said, his tone flat. "I think I can help." Nathan didn't like him. His voice was too smooth, his suit too crisp, his smile too polished. But when someone says they might be able to wake your daughter, you don't ask for character references. Elias introduced a team of experts, rolling in machines with more blinking lights than a Christmas tree. They discussed cranial response recalibration, AI-guided consciousness mapping, and something called a dream simulation portal. Nathan didn't understand most of it. "She's not a machine," Nathan had said under his breath. "No," Elias replied, "but her brain is, and that's what we fix." They placed a headset gently over Lena's face. It emitted soft blue light and a low hum. They monitored signals. They adjusted frequencies. They tweaked patterns like radio dials searching for a lost song. But Lena didn't move, didn't twitch, didn't come back. 3 days passed, then 4. Elias began showing up less frequently. His team started whispering. The machines remained, but the faith behind them began to fade. Now, it was just Nathan again. Nathan and the beeping machines and the steady weight of waiting. That night, just past midnight, a soft knock came at the glass window of Lena's room. Nathan looked up, startled. No one ever visited at this hour. A nurse peeked in, hesitant. "Mr. Caldwell." "There's someone here. A boy." Nathan stood slowly. "What kind of boy he says he wants to help your daughter?" Nathan's eyebrows tightened. "Help her." He didn't say how. Just said, "I can help." The nurse sounded unsure, maybe even a little unnerved. "He's waiting in the lobby." Nathan walked toward the hall, weary and wary. There, sitting on a hard bench outside the ICU, was a barefoot black boy no older than 12. He wore a weather-beaten gray hoodie that hung past his wrists. His jeans were torn at the knee. His hands were folded neatly in his lap, but it was his eyes deep, steady, strangely still that gave Nathan pause. They didn't dart around like a runaway's or glow like a prankster's. They watched, quietly, honestly. Nathan approached. "You the one asking about my daughter?" The boy stood, nodded once. "Yes, sir." "You lost or something?" "No, sir." "What's your name?" The boy didn't answer. He looked past Nathan at the room behind him, the girl on the bed, the stillness of her chest. Then he said, "I can wake her up." Nathan blinked. "What did you say, I can wake her up?" The boy repeated, calm, not cocky, not even hopeful, just certain. Nathan exhaled through his nose. "Listen, kid, I don't know what you think you're." "She's listening." The boy interrupted gently. "She's just afraid to come back. She doesn't know it's safe." Nathan stared at him. The fluorescent lights buzzed above them like an invisible warning. The boy met Nathan's gaze, unshaken. "She needs to hear your truth, not the one you wear like armor, the one you buried." Nathan opened his mouth, then closed it. For the first time in days, he felt the smallest tremor of something unfamiliar in his chest. It wasn't fear. It wasn't hope. It was curiosity. "Who are you?" Nathan asked, voice rough. The boy tilted his head. "Just someone who remembers what others forget." The next morning came quietly. Like most of them had that week, a gray drizzle tapped against the hospital windows, making the entire city feel like it had been placed under a wet paper towel. Nathan Caldwell sat beside Lena's bed, his hand resting lightly over hers. It wasn't for her benefit, really. It was for his. He needed to feel her skin, to remind himself she was still here, even if locked somewhere unreachable. The boy had disappeared after last night. No one saw him leave. He hadn't signed in. Security had no record. Nathan asked 2 different nurses in the front desk, and both shrugged, assuming he was talking about a dream or maybe a hallucination. Stress could do strange things to a person's mind, but Nathan knew what he saw. The way that kid had looked at Lena, like he'd known her longer than a moment. The way he had spoken not as if he were guessing or hoping, but as if he already knew something Nathan didn't. It wasn't normal. He hadn't told the doctors. He wasn't sure he believed himself yet. Lena's vitals stayed steady. Machines blinked. Tubes did what tubes did. The pediatric neurologist came in mid-morning and stared at the chart for several minutes before sighing and saying what she always said: "There's no regression, but no progress either." Nathan nodded. That had become the mantra. No better, no worse, just frozen. He stepped out of the room when Elias Granger called. The billionaire never came without an entrance. Nathan heard the click of his leather shoes before he saw the man. 2 assistants trailed him, holding iPads and a sleek silver briefcase. Elias smiled, smooth and cold. His tailored suit looked more appropriate for a gala than a hospital corridor. Nathan didn't move from where he leaned against the wall. "I hear we've had a visitor," Elias said. Nathan squinted. "Excuse me, one of my people told me about some barefoot kid." That true Nathan's eyes narrowed. "How'd your people hear anything I didn't file a report? I make it my business to know when strange people are wandering around my hospital." Nathan pushed off the wall. "She's not your daughter." "No," Elias said simply. "She's not, but she's now connected to a $10 million neurosensory array that I developed. That buys me some curiosity." Nathan folded his arms. "She didn't ask for your machines. She didn't ask for a coma either." Silence stood thick between them. Elias gestured to the assistant holding the silver case. "We brought something new, a prototype. This one wasn't ready for trial use, but I'm willing to override that." "What is it?" Nathan asked warily. "Neural mirror mapping. It simulates consciousness by projecting memories and emotional triggers directly into the brainstem, using adaptive waveform technology. Think of it as a mirror that reminds the brain who it used to be." Nathan blinked slowly. "That's a whole lot of fancy for we don't know what else to try." Elias chuckled. "Sometimes innovation starts where hope stops." Nathan stared at the silver case. "And if it backfires, it won't," Elias said, brushing past him and walking into Lena's room without asking. Nathan followed, his shoulders tight. They placed the device on Lena's forehead. A faint green light pulsed with every beat of her heart. The machines picked up. Small changes, micro hesitations in the brain waves. One of the assistants muttered, "That's new," and started logging data. Nathan moved to the side of the bed. Lena's eyelids fluttered, just once, then again. His heart leapt, but the neurologist raised a hand. "It's involuntary," she said. "A brainstem reflex. So close, and yet still not enough." The light on the device flickered, then dimmed. Elias frowned. "Run the last sequence again." They restarted the system. Again, Lena's eyelids flickered. Her hand twitched. The machines chirped, but she didn't wake up. Nathan reached for her hand. "Lena," he whispered. "It's Dad. Can you hear me?" Silence. He waited. 5 seconds. 10. The machines blinked, but the girl remained still. Elias turned to his assistant. "We'll recalibrate the memory mapping, load in older images, childhood memories, see what connects." Nathan stepped in. "No." Elias raised an eyebrow. "Excuse me. No more files. No more inputs. She's not a drive you can reboot." Elias folded his arms. "I understand this is emotional for you." "No, you don't." Nathan's voice sharpened. "You talk like she's a puzzle to be solved, but she's a little girl, my little girl, and if you don't understand the difference, you can take your toys and go." Elias stared at him a long time, then gave a slow nod. "Very well, but if you change your mind, I won't." Elias turned and walked out, snapping his fingers for his team to follow. When the room fell silent again, Nathan returned to Lena's side. The green light on her forehead dimmed completely and powered off. He pulled the blanket up around her arms, then sat down in the chair again, every muscle in his back tense and tired. His hands trembled just slightly, not from anger, from exhaustion. His eyes wandered to the window. Rain still fell in a steady drizzle. Outside, people moved with umbrellas and coats. Life kept going. Bills were piling up, projects were stalled, but none of it mattered, because Lena was still asleep. Nathan whispered something he hadn't said aloud in years. "I miss your mom today." His voice cracked. She would have known what to do. He closed his eyes. The room buzzed with the soft hum of machines and time slipping away. Later that evening, a nurse came in to take readings. Nathan stood by the sink, washing his face. The cold water didn't help. It just made the hollowness in his chest feel heavier. As she scribbled her notes, the nurse asked casually, "You have any family coming to visit?" "No." Nathan said, "It's just us." She paused, looked up. "Well, if it helps at all, I think she's holding on for you." Nathan looked at her. "She may not show it, but she knows you're here. I've seen it before. Sometimes it's not the machines or the meds. Sometimes it's just the voice." Nathan nodded, unsure what to say. That night, he sat beside Lena again, and for no particular reason, maybe out of habit or despair or hope he didn't believe in, he whispered a story into the quiet. It was an old one, about a girl who lived in a cottage on the moon and painted stars for lonely children. He hadn't told that story in years, not since before the accident that took his wife, not since the laughter disappeared from their home. He finished the story, then looked down. Lena's fingers twitched. It was so small he almost missed it, but he didn't. He leaned closer, watched the monitor. Nothing changed there, but her fingers had moved. "Baby," he whispered. No response. Just a silence that felt slightly warmer than before. He stayed there all night, unsure what had shifted, but sure that something had. And when he finally closed his eyes just after 3, he didn't dream. But somewhere, deep in the hallways of the hospital, soft footsteps echoed, bare, calm, headed back toward room 423. The third night always felt different. That's what the night nurse told Nathan as she brought him a fresh cup of coffee. Decaf, because she said it wouldn't make a difference now. He hadn't slept in more than 2 hours a night since Lena collapsed, and he didn't expect to tonight either. She told him, almost like a superstition, that if a coma went beyond 10 days, the third night before that threshold always did something strange. Not always good, but strange. Nathan gave a polite nod and thanked her, though he didn't believe in signs anymore. Not since the car crash that killed his wife. Not since he stood in the emergency room 7 years ago, holding a stuffed giraffe in one hand and trying to remember how to tie his daughter's shoes. Signs didn't stop a drunk driver. Signs didn't bring people back. Still, something about the room felt different tonight. Not colder, not warmer, just more alive somehow. Lena looked the same. Pale. Still. Her small body tucked under a navy fleece blanket decorated with constellations. He had chosen that one because of the bedtime stories she used to beg him to tell. Her favorite was always the girl who whispered to the stars. She used to ask, "Daddy, do the stars talk back?" He always said yes, and maybe they did. But they'd been quiet lately. Nathan leaned over her bed and brushed a strand of hair off her forehead. His calloused fingers felt clumsy against her soft curls. She looked so much like her mother when she slept. Strong jaw, gentle eyes, curly hair that always seemed to fight back. "I miss you," he said quietly. "I miss both of you." No reply. Of course, but saying it still mattered. He turned back toward the window just to check the weather. The blinds were halfway drawn, but in the reflection of the glass, he saw something strange. A boy, not a reflection, not a nurse. An actual boy standing just outside the room's door. Barefoot, hoodie soaked from the rain. He wasn't doing anything, just watching. Nathan spun around and opened the door. The boy didn't flinch, didn't run. He stood calmly, hands in the front pocket of his hoodie, face dirty but his eyes sharp, too old for his frame. "You again," Nathan said, stepping into the hallway. "You're the one from before." The boy nodded once. "Yes, sir." Nathan's heart pounded. "How did you get back in here? You're not on the visitor log. The nurses said I don't need to be signed in." The boy replied, "I just need to be here." Nathan exhaled, trying to keep his frustration in check. "What's your name?" The boy was quiet for a moment, then said softly, "Micah." "Micah," Nathan repeated. "All right, Micah. You said before you could help her. What did you mean by that?" Micah didn't look at him. His eyes drifted past Nathan again, toward Lena. "She's still listening. She heard your voice last night. You saw her hand move too?" Nathan asked, voice lowering. "That was real." "Yes," Micah said, "but that's not enough." "What do you mean, she's between two places?" Micah said, voice gentle, but firm. "The place where pain lives and the place where healing begins. And she's scared to move in either direction." Nathan swallowed hard. "What does she need you?" Micah said, "but not the version of you you've been trying to be." Nathan frowned. "I've been here every hour. I haven't left her side." "I know," Micah replied. "You've been present, but you haven't been open. You're still hiding, still holding on to what you never said." Nathan's stomach clenched. "What is this?" he snapped quietly. "Some kind of performance. Are you one of Granger's plants? Some psychological experiment for desperate parents?" "No," Micah said. "I'm not his anything. I'm not anyone's. I'm just here because she needs what the machines can't give." Nathan took a step back. His mind was spinning. He didn't believe in magic. He didn't believe in miracles. But he believed in instinct. And something inside him said this boy wasn't lying. Micah took a small step forward. "Can I sit with her?" Nathan hesitated. Every instinct told him no. But something deeper, older, something he hadn't listened to in years nodded. "Okay," he said quietly. "Just Be gentle." Micah entered the room like he'd been there before. Not afraid, not eager, just steady. He walked to the side of the bed, stood there for a moment, then gently placed a hand on Lena's arm. His fingers were small, but his touch was careful, respectful. He leaned down and whispered something so soft Nathan couldn't hear. Then he turned. "Now you, me. She heard your voice last night, but it wasn't the voice she needed most. You spoke from habit. You need to speak from your wound." Nathan blinked. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Yes, you do." Micah sat down in the chair Nathan usually occupied and looked up at him with eyes that didn't match his age. Nathan stood frozen. He wanted to scream. He wanted to protect her. He wanted to believe and run away all at once. "I wasn't there," Nathan finally said. His voice came out hoarse. "I wasn't there the morning she collapsed. I was at the site. I'd left early because I had a deadline. I missed her brushing her teeth. I missed her humming. I missed the signs." His hands trembled. "I missed it. Like I missed her mom's last call the night she died. I was too late then. I was too late again." Micah said nothing. "I keep thinking," Nathan whispered, "that maybe I'm cursed. Maybe everyone I love ends up on a table like this, and maybe it's my fault for never stopping long enough to see what mattered." He knelt beside the bed, his hands covering his eyes. "I should have told her I was proud. I should have kissed her goodbye. I should have sung the song she loved when she got scared at night. I stopped singing after her mom died. I stopped a lot of things." He lowered his head. "I'm sorry, Lena. I'm so sorry." The room was silent for a beat. Then the heart monitor chirped. Not loud, just one additional beat. The nurse glanced at the screen from the hallway and frowned. She walked in. "Mr. Caldwell." Did you see that Nathan looked up? Breath caught in his chest. See what her oxygen levels just jumped. No explanation. Micah stood up and smiled faintly. "She heard you," he said. Nathan turned toward him. "How do you know that Micah just nodded once?" "Because she smiled." "On the inside." Nathan stared at him. "Will you come back?" he asked. Micah paused at the door. "If she needs me." Then he walked into the hallway and vanished before anyone else could notice. Nathan rushed after him. But when he stepped into the corridor, it was empty. Not a sound, not a footprint. Just the soft hum of fluorescent lights. He returned to Lena's side, his heart racing. The machines still beeped, but now they weren't alone. Because somewhere inside the silence, Lena was listening. The sun rose slow and reluctant. Like it, too, was unsure if hope belonged in the day ahead. Nathan hadn't slept. Not really. He'd dozed here and there, head resting near Lena's shoulder, one arm draped gently over her blanket. But his mind kept replaying the boy's words, again and again. She smiled on the inside. She heard you. That heartbeat spike had been real. The nurse confirmed it again during the morning check. Oxygen increased, a shift in her brainwave pattern, however subtle. Something was stirring. Something had changed. Nathan didn't know how to explain it to anyone, especially not to the team of neurologists that rotated in like ghosts with lab coats and clipboards. Their words always hovered between probability and prognosis, but none of them ever once asked him what he'd said to his daughter. No one ever asked what silence sounded like when it was filled with truth. So, when the attending physician reviewed the charts and said, "We're seeing something inconsistent," Nathan said nothing. He kept Lena's favorite blanket tucked around her arms. He wiped her lips with a warm cloth, and when no one was watching, he hummed the lullaby her mother used to sing, the one he hadn't dared utter since the funeral. She used to ask for it every time there was thunder. The melody was simple, circular, a few soft notes that wrapped around a single line. Hold on. Little dreamer, you're not alone in the dark. Micah hadn't returned. Nathan found himself checking the hallway every hour, waiting, hoping, wondering if he had imagined the whole thing. A barefoot boy appearing from nowhere, disappearing just as quietly. No one else had seen him, and if the nurses had, none admitted it. By midday, Elias Granger returned. His suit was a different shade of charcoal, but the energy was the same, confident, controlled, clinical. He walked in holding a tablet, barely glancing at Lena. I reviewed last night's logs, he said. Oxygen flux, EMG activity. Something happened. Nathan nodded. I know. Elias set the tablet down. Do you want to talk about it? I don't think you'd believe me. I'm a man of data. Mr. Caldwell, not belief. Then we've got nothing to talk about. Elias exhaled and pulled up a chair. He tapped a few buttons on his screen, then turned it toward Nathan. This, he said, is a rendering of Lena's hippocampal activity during the moment her heart rate spiked. Something triggered a memory cascade, most likely auditory. Nathan looked at the screen. Faint waves danced in soft green lines. I sang, he said quietly. I sang her lullaby for the first time in 7 years. Elias tilted his head slightly. Interesting. She used to need it to sleep. Do you think she remembered it? I know she did. Elias nodded, his fingers tapping the edge of the tablet. Emotion can create temporary surges in neural function. The challenge is sustaining it long enough to prompt full consciousness. Nathan didn't reply. He wasn't interested in tech language for something he knew was human. I'd like to propose one more test, Elias continued. Something more immersive. A full-room memory replication chamber. We simulate her old bedroom, her books, her nightlight, even your voice. Nathan frowned. You think she'll wake up in a simulation before she does in the real world? Sometimes, Elias said, the body needs a safe story to believe in before it returns to truth. Nathan stood slowly. No. Elias raised his eyebrows. Excuse me, I'm not letting you turn her room into a lab. Not again. It's not invasive. It's not real, Nathan said, his voice low and firm. And if she comes back, it'll be because she heard her father, not because she responded to an illusion. Elias leaned back, arms crossed. You're letting sentiment blind you. No, I'm letting it guide me. Nathan walked him out of the room without another word. That night, Micah returned. Nathan saw him standing in the hallway again. Same hoodie, same quiet presence, but this time he didn't question how. He didn't even ask why. He just opened the door. I hoped you'd come, Nathan said. Micah nodded, stepping inside. I think she's closer, Nathan added. She moved. The machines saw it. I know, Micah replied. Nathan looked at him. How do you always know Micah didn't answer? Instead, he stepped up to Lena's bedside again, gently brushing his hand over her temple. It was so tender, like a brother or an old friend. She's waiting for one more thing, Micah said softly. Nathan's throat tightened. What is it? The song, Micah said, but not just a hum. Not the version your voice remembers, the one your heart remembers. Nathan stepped back like he'd been struck. I can't, he said. voice cracking. "Yes, you can." "No," Nathan repeated, quieter this time. That song belonged to her mother. It was our song. The last time I sang it was in hospice. I held her hand. Her fingers went still before the final note. Micah turned. His eyes were deeper than before. Or maybe Nathan was just seeing him clearly for the first time. That's why it matters. Nathan looked down at Lena. Her face was the picture of stillness. But now he could almost imagine that beneath that calm was something trembling. "Waiting?" Micah said again. "Sing." Nathan sat down. His fingers trembled as they gripped the arm of the chair. He closed his eyes and let the world fall away. Let the hospital walls disappear. Let the machines and the failures and the guilt dissolve. And slowly the melody came back. There's light in the shadows and stars in the rain. Hold on. Little dreamer, you'll fly once again. His voice cracked halfway through, but he kept singing. You're braver than silence. You're softer than fear. You're made of the echoes that brought me back here. Tears ran down his cheeks. He reached for Lena's hand. Her fingers were still. Then they weren't. They closed, just slightly, around his. A sudden chirp from the monitor made the nurse rush in. Her breath caught when she saw the readings. Elevated, strong, stable. She's responding. The nurse whispered. Micah stepped back and smiled faintly. Nathan looked at him. "Why are you helping us?" Micah's voice was soft. "Because I remember what it's like to wait in a room and wonder if someone will speak. I remember what it's like to not be found." Nathan couldn't say anything. Micah continued. "You found her. That's what matters." Nathan stood. "Will you come back tomorrow if she needs me?" Micah said, and walked out into the hallway. Nathan followed, but just like before, the boy was gone. Only this time, Nathan didn't feel alone because Lena was still holding his hand. Nathan didn't leave the hospital that night, not even to shower or change his shirt. He sat by Lena's bedside with a notebook in his lap, the cheap spiral kind from a gas station. It was the only thing he could find nearby that wasn't sterile, beeping, or cold. He hadn't written in years, not since before the accident, not since the weight of grief had crushed the part of him that used to believe in words. But now, things were stirring. Words, emotions, something in him he thought had been buried with his wife. He didn't write anything brilliant, just fragments, things Lena used to say, questions she asked about the stars, a list of things he wished he'd said before she fell silent. The page started to fill with messy scrawls and tear blots. He glanced at her hand, still resting in his. She hadn't moved again since the last time, but her pulse was strong, and the nurse had confirmed the EEGs were showing active dream state patterns. "She's in there," the nurse whispered earlier, like she's halfway home. Nathan kept staring at her face, memorizing it, the slight freckle near her left ear, the way her lashes curled toward her cheek. She had her mother's nose. He used to say that all the time. Then, one day, he stopped. He hadn't said anything about her mother's face in years. He folded the notebook closed and rested his hand on top of it. He had no idea what tomorrow would bring, but he knew one thing with certainty: it would bring Micah. And it did. Just after 9, as Nathan was reading a story Lena used to love, a soft knock came at the door. It was barely audible. Not the brisk knock of a nurse or doctor, not urgent, not impatient, just present. He looked up. Micah stood there, same hoodie, same jeans, still barefoot, like he had stepped out of a memory instead of from the hallway. Nathan opened the door. You came back. Micah nodded. She's closer today. I know. I can feel it. Nathan moved aside to let him in. Micah paused for a moment before entering, eyes scanning the room like it had changed, like it was preparing for something sacred. Nathan sat down in the chair and waited. Micah stood next to Lena, his expression unreadable but gentle. She's in a tunnel, he said quietly. Not a dark one, but not bright either. She's trying to decide whether to walk forward or backward. Nathan swallowed. What helps her decide? You, Micah said, but not just with words. She needs the memory that makes her believe she's still yours. Nathan closed his eyes. She is still mine. Then show her. Micah didn't speak again. He stepped back and leaned against the window, like a sentinel, waiting, watching. Nathan took a breath and turned toward Lena. He didn't know where to begin, so he started at the beginning. Do you remember the story about the girl who whispered to the moon? He asked. There was no reply, only the quiet hum of the machines and the tick of the second hand on the wall clock. You were 5 the first time I told it. He continued. Your mom had just gotten out of the hospital. We were all scared. But you weren't. You said you wanted to send her strength. So we made up a story about a girl who painted stars with her voice. Every night she whispered to the moon and asked it to carry her song to the people she loved. Nathan's voice wavered. You told me I should do the same, that if I talked to the sky long enough, it would talk back. His hands trembled. His throat felt tight. I stopped talking to the sky after she died. Lena. I stopped telling stories. I stopped whispering to the moon. But you never did. You never gave up on wonder. Micah closed his eyes, as if listening to something more ancient than sound. Nathan leaned closer. I need you to come back now, not because I need to be saved, but because I finally remember what I'm supposed to be. Your storyteller, your dad. He took out the notebook and opened it. I started writing again. For you. I'm going to keep writing, every day, until you come home. He placed the notebook gently on the blanket near her side. Even if you don't wake up today, you're still listening, aren't you? The monitor gave a faint, unusual blip. Nathan stood. Okay, he whispered. Let's do it the way you always liked. He sat back down, cleared his throat, and began. There was a girl who whispered to the moon, and the moon listened, not because she was loud, but because she was brave. As he spoke, something shifted, not in the machines, not even in the room, but in Lena's fingers. They moved, first the pinky, then the rest, not a reflex, a reach. She reached for the notebook. Nathan gasped and grabbed her hand. Baby. Her fingers didn't open, but they didn't go still either. They hovered there, like she was halfway into a decision. Micah stepped forward. She's remembering. Nathan looked up. Can you tell her more? Do you know what to say? Micah nodded, then bent down close to Lena's ear. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't speak with drama or volume. He just whispered. Nathan couldn't hear the words, but he saw the reaction. A single tear rolled from Lena's closed eye down her cheek. Nathan covered his mouth. Micah stepped back. She's choosing, he said quietly, choosing what to believe you still see her. Nathan stepped closer, voice hoarse. I do, baby. I never stopped. I just I forgot how to show it." Micah turned toward the window. "She'll wake when she's ready, but now she knows the way back." Nathan sat down slowly, heart pounding. The machines returned to their quiet rhythm, but now it felt different. Not mechanical, not routine, but hopeful. Micah walked to the door. "Will you come back tomorrow?" Nathan asked. Micah didn't answer immediately. Then he said, "Maybe, but I think your voice is stronger now." Nathan watched him disappear again. This time, something inside him let go, not of hope, but of control. He didn't need to understand it all. He just needed to keep speaking. That night, he stayed beside Lena and wrote 5 more pages in the notebook. At the top of the first page, he wrote, "For the girl who whispered to the moon and is finally being heard." The following morning, the hospital hallway buzzed with new energy. The nurses whispered more than usual. 2 of them had seen Lena's fingers move. Another claimed to have seen a tear slide down her cheek during the night. For the first time in weeks, the nurses' station wasn't filled with polite detachment. It pulsed with the fragile electricity of hope. Nathan noticed it too, but something in him was still cautious. Hope, he had learned, could sometimes feel cruel when it moved too fast. He stayed close to Lena's side, feeding her soft words and gentle stories. Not just out of ritual now, but because something inside him believed she was choosing to listen. That belief was new, and still so terrifying it made his chest ache. By mid-morning, Dr. Elias Granger returned. His suit was crisp, his walk confident. But there was something colder in his eyes today. The warmth that once seemed curious now felt transactional. Nathan could sense it even before he spoke. I reviewed the overnight footage. Elias began without greeting. "This is the second instance of measurable movement." Nathan nodded but said nothing. Elias pulled up a chair and sat. He laid his tablet on his lap and folded his hands. "You've refused the neural emulation chamber." I respected that. Nathan kept his expression neutral. "But I've been reviewing logs from the security feed. You've had someone visiting your room who hasn't signed in." Nathan's shoulders stiffened. "He's not registered," Elias said. "No ID badge, no hospital volunteer profile, no clearance to be on this floor." "He's a child," Nathan replied slowly. "Probably 12 or 13. Children don't belong in restricted zones, especially barefoot ones." Nathan's heart started to pound. "What do you want from me?" "I want you to tell me who he is and how he's getting in." Nathan stood up. "He's not hurting anyone." "Then why is he sneaking in?" "Maybe because this place only recognizes healing when it comes from machines." Elias narrowed his eyes. "You think your daughter's improvement is connected to this boy? I know it is. That's a dangerous assumption. It's not an assumption. It's a father's instinct, something your sensors don't measure." Elias stood too, towering slightly. "This hospital runs on protocol, not instinct." Nathan stepped forward. "Then maybe that's why no one here knows how to help her." There was a long silence. Elias picked up his tablet and turned to leave. "If I see that boy on this floor again," he said over his shoulder, "security will be alerted." Nathan clenched his fists but said nothing. He waited until the echo of Elias's shoes faded down the hall. Later that day, Nathan didn't read stories or sing. He just sat and listened. Listened to the soft sound of Lena's breath, the way the IV drip clicked, the way the world held its breath around her. Then, sometime past sunset, Micah appeared again. This time, Nathan rushed to open the door before he could knock. "They're watching for you," Nathan said quietly. Micah tilted his head. "I know. Elias thinks you're a risk." Micah stepped into the room and looked at Lena. "I'm only a risk to those who fear truth." Nathan shut the door behind him and sat down again. He said, "If he sees you again, he'll call security." Micah didn't flinch. "They won't see me." Nathan looked at him. "How do you do that?" "Walk through this place like a shadow." Micah didn't answer right away. He reached for Lena's hand. "She's further than before," he said, "but closer too." Nathan's voice cracked. "That doesn't make sense." "It does if you've ever been stuck between pain and peace." Micah gently touched Lena's forehead. "She's remembering things that scare her. That's why it's harder now. The closer she gets to waking, the more she feels what she tried to escape." Nathan felt a deep chill. What did she try to escape? "The moment," Micah whispered, "when she realized no one could protect her." Nathan sat back in the chair, stunned. It felt like a punch to the gut. "I was supposed to keep her safe." "No one blames you," Micah said. "I blame me." Micah turned and looked him in the eyes. "Then forgive yourself, or she won't believe it's safe to come back." The words hit harder than anything Elias could ever say. Nathan bent forward, hands trembling. "I left her alone in the car that day, just for 5 minutes. I ran back into the house for my wallet. I didn't see the truck coming. By the time I made it outside, she was already broken." His voice cracked again. "She was just reading a book, just waiting for me like always." Micah didn't interrupt. He just listened, hands folded in front of him. "I've lived every day since asking myself why I didn't make her come inside with me." "Because you trusted the world," Micah said quietly, "and it betrayed you." Nathan covered his face. "I can't go back and fix it." "No." Micah agreed, "but you can tell her that. Say it out loud. Let her know you're not perfect. Just present." Nathan lowered his hands. He turned back toward Lena. He leaned close. "Sweetheart, I'm so sorry. I thought I was keeping you safe. I thought 5 minutes was nothing. I didn't know it would change everything." His voice cracked. "I've hated myself in silence for so long, but I need you to know the truth. I never left because I didn't care. I left because I thought I'd be right back." He took a breath, "And now I'll never leave again." The room was silent. Then Lena moved her lips, not a full word, just a tremble, a whisper of sound. Micah stepped forward. "She's fighting." Nathan took her hand and pressed it to his cheek. "I'm here," he whispered. "Come back. We'll build new stories, new songs." The monitor flickered, not alarming, just shifting, as if her rhythm was adjusting. Micah smiled softly. "She believes you now." Nathan turned to him. "Who are you really?" Micah's smile didn't change. "I'm just a reminder." Then he walked to the window and disappeared into the glow of the city lights. That night, for the first time in months, Lena's eyelids fluttered in her sleep, not in pain, but like someone dreaming of the way home. Lena's eyes didn't open the next morning, but something had changed. Her breathing was different, deeper, steadier. Her fingers no longer lay limp but curled gently, like she was holding on to something only she could feel. Nurses noticed. So did the night shift neurologist, who quietly adjusted the charts without explaining why his hand trembled. Nathan knew, even before the doctors and monitors could confirm it. He felt it in his bones. His daughter wasn't just surviving anymore. She was climbing, crawling, inch by inch, back into the light. Still, she didn't wake. That made daybreak both beautiful and brutal. Nathan read stories. He played her favorite lullabies from an old playlist they used to sing along with in the car. He talked about the things they would do once she was awake, painting her room, visiting the mountains again, making pancakes the wrong way, too much chocolate, not enough batter. And still, she didn't wake. As evening came, Nathan sat by her bedside and stared at her face, searching for any sign that her mind could hear the storm building outside the hospital window. And then came the knock. 3 soft taps on the door. Familiar? Nathan opened it without hesitation. Micah stood there, soaked from the rain. His hoodie clung to him, darkened by water, his curls dripping, yet his eyes, those ancient, unshaken eyes, were dry. "I almost didn't make it," he said quietly, stepping in. "They watching you again?" Micah nodded. They're trying to understand something that was never made for them. Nathan handed him a clean towel from the cabinet. "I've got less than 5 minutes before they check this room again. The shift nurse already suspects something." Micah sat by Lena's bedside, folding the towel in his lap without using it. "She's very close now," he said. Nathan leaned forward. "Then why won't she wake? Because something inside her still believes the world isn't ready." Nathan froze. "She's waiting for one last sound, one thing she never got to hear. What your voice, not your stories, not your songs, but your truth." Nathan blinked. "I've told her everything." Micah looked at him carefully. "You've told her everything except why you stopped singing." Nathan stood still. That truth had been locked away like a secret drawer he'd promised never to open. "I stopped after the funeral," he whispered, "because it hurt too much." "No," Micah said gently. "That's what you told yourself. But that's not why." Nathan's shoulders dropped. "I stopped because I was angry. Angry at what? At God?" Nathan admitted. "At myself, at the world, at anything that could take away someone who made everything feel alive. I thought if I kept singing, it would feel like she was still here. And I couldn't bear that." Micah looked back at Lena. "Then say that to her." "She already knows." "No," Micah replied. "She remembers the sound of your voice, but not the reason it left." Nathan walked slowly to the edge of the bed and took Lena's hand. His voice was barely above a whisper. "Sweetheart, I didn't stop singing because I forgot you. I stopped because every note reminded me of your mother, and I thought remembering her would break me." A tear slid down his cheek. "But I've been wrong. Remembering her, that's what brought you back. That's what brought Micah." Micah stood, eyes locked on Nathan. "She needs to hear it. The song, the one you haven't let yourself sing in years." Nathan turned pale. "That song is hers, my wife's. I wrote it for our wedding. And it was the last thing Lena heard before the accident," Micah added. Nathan sank into the chair. How do you know that Micah didn't answer? He just looked toward the window. Lightning flashed across the Boston skyline. Nathan sat there for a long time, hand over his mouth. Then slowly, shakily, he rose. He pulled the old notebook from the drawer and flipped to the final page. There, in faded ink, were the lyrics, handwritten, slightly smudged, the last piece of her, the last song of them. He began to hum, softly at first, just breath on air. Then his voice found it, wavering, cracked, but real. The melody rose, catching the edge of every word he used to bury. It was imperfect, unsteady, but woven with love that had nowhere else to go. And as he sang, Lena stirred, her eyelids fluttered. Micah closed his eyes. Nathan kept going. He reached the second verse, and Lena's hand tightened. By the time he reached the final chorus, her eyes were open, half-lidded, unfocused, but open. "Lena," he gasped. She blinked slowly, mouth parting. Nathan dropped to his knees by the bed, clutching her hand. I'm here, baby girl." She looked at him with clouded recognition. "Daddy." The word fell like thunder wrapped in grace. Nathan sobbed. Micah stood back, silent, smiling. But the door burst open. 2 security guards and Nurse Peyton stormed in. "What's going on?" the nurse shouted, racing to Lena's side. "She's awake," Nathan said, tears still falling. "She said my name." Nurse Peyton gasped, calling for the attending physician. The guards didn't move. They were staring at Micah. "You again," one said. "You can't be here." Micah looked at Lena one last time, then at Nathan. "You're her voice now." He turned and stepped toward the open door, but as he crossed the threshold, he vanished. No footsteps, no shadow, just absence. The guards stared, stunned. Nurse Peyton screamed, and Lena, blinking fully awake now, said one more thing. "The boy from the dream, that's him." The room erupted into chaos. Nathan remained kneeling, holding her hand. His eyes closed, his voice, once lost, humming again. He didn't understand who Micah was, or where he had gone, but he knew what he had left behind. Sound, belief, truth, and the knowledge that sometimes the loudest miracles happen inside the quietest rooms. The hospital erupted with movement. Within 10 minutes of Lena speaking her first words, 2 neurologists, 3 nurses, and the lead-attending physician had assembled in her room like a quiet storm. They moved with hurried reverence, whispering terms like spontaneous reactivation and neurobridge continuity, but not a single one of them could explain how a girl who had been in a deep coma for nearly 2 months had suddenly blinked, spoken, and called out to her father. Nathan sat still through it all. He didn't care about the charts or the blinking lights. He didn't care about the technicians scrambling to recalibrate their monitors. All he cared about was Lena's hand, resting weakly in his, and the fact that every time he whispered her name, her lips twitched ever so slightly. She was coming back. For the first time in months, he wasn't surviving in pieces. He was breathing in full. The news traveled faster than he expected. By noon, the hospital director himself had visited the room. Reporters were outside the building by evening. Some came to cover the medical miracle. Others whispered rumors of something stranger. A boy. A barefoot boy who had walked into a secured unit and vanished without a trace. Someone had leaked the security footage. It showed Micah entering the room but never leaving. There were no glitches, no skipped frames, just 1 second he was there. The next, gone. Nathan hadn't seen the footage yet. He didn't want to. It didn't matter what the cameras had or hadn't caught. He knew what he had seen, what he had felt. Micah was real, and the more people tried to deny that, the more Nathan understood just how far the world had strayed from what truly mattered. That evening, after the specialists left and Lena drifted back into light sleep, Nathan sat beside her and began to write. It wasn't a press statement. It wasn't a social media post. It was a letter. A long, handwritten letter he had no plans to send but needed to write. He addressed it to Micah. Dear Micah, I don't know where you went. I don't know if I'll ever see you again, but I need to tell you something, just in case you're still listening. You did what no doctor, no machine, no protocol could do. You reminded me of my voice. You reminded me that healing doesn't come from control. It comes from release. You taught me that love can walk barefoot and still leave footprints the world tries to erase. Thank you for saving my daughter. Thank you for saving me. Nathan. He folded the letter and tucked it inside his notebook. Not because he planned to deliver it, but because he needed it close, like a talisman. The following morning, Elias Granger returned. He wore a different suit, darker and more polished. His eyes were harder, colder, and he was not alone. 2 legal representatives from the biotech firm walked behind him, along with a public relations officer holding a tablet. Nathan felt the shift in the air the moment they entered. Elias didn't smile. Mr. Caldwell, he began, we need to speak with you privately. Nathan stood but didn't move from Lena's side. You can speak right here, he said calmly. One of the lawyers stepped forward. We're here to discuss the nature of your daughter's recovery and any unauthorized individuals who may have entered this room during her care. Nathan nodded slowly. You mean Micah? You gave him a name. Elias said, Interesting. He told me his name. Did he also tell you how he bypassed 5 layers of security? No, Nathan said, because that wasn't the important part. Elias's mouth tightened. Mr. Caldwell, we're trying to protect the integrity of this hospital. No, Nathan said, his voice steady. You're trying to protect your narrative. One of the lawyers shifted uncomfortably. You're aware, of course, that security footage shows the boy entering your room and never leaving Nathan looked him in the eye. And you're aware that Lena is awake. Against every prediction, every machine, every model, we're not disputing her improvement, Elias said. Then what are you disputing? We're trying to ensure there's no external influence that could jeopardize patient safety. Nathan stepped closer. She was in a coma. You wanted to strap her to a machine that would erase half her memories in exchange for a chance. I said no. You called it primitive, but now that she's awake on her own, you want to sanitize the parts you don't understand. Elias took a slow breath. You're emotional. I get that. No, Nathan interrupted, voice like steel. I'm clear, and I won't let you turn this miracle into a marketing strategy for your next neural device. The PR officer opened her mouth to interject, but one look from Nathan made her pause. I'm taking my daughter home as soon as her vitals are stable, he said, and I suggest you don't try to interfere, because I've written everything down, and people are already asking questions. Elias's jaw clenched. Then he turned sharply and left the room without another word. The others followed. Nathan exhaled only when the door clicked shut. Later that afternoon, a new nurse arrived. Her name was Samira. Her presence was quiet, and she wore no badge of urgency. Instead, she simply walked to Lena's side, smiled, and said gently, "Welcome back, sweetheart." Lena blinked and whispered, "Are you an angel?" Samira laughed softly. "No, baby. Just someone who believes." Nathan smiled from the corner. "Do you believe in barefoot miracles?" he asked. Samira looked at him thoughtfully. "I believe in whatever wakes a child from silence." That night. Nathan sat by the window and watched the city breathe. Lena was stable, resting, healing. But the world outside had begun to roar. Articles were circulating, conspiracy theories, spiritual blogs, podcasts. Some were calling Micah an angel, others a glitch in reality. A few were calling Nathan a fraud. None of it mattered. He remembered Micah's final words. "You're her voice now." Nathan opened his notebook again. He turned to a blank page and began writing the first verse of a new song. Not about loss, not about pain, but about truth, memory, love, and the sound that lives beneath silence. Nathan had never known how heavy silence could become when the world was suddenly listening. It wasn't just the hospital anymore. The story had spilled far beyond its marble walls. Local news had turned into national headlines. Articles carried headlines like "Coma Girl Wakes Without Tech Father Credits," "Stranger No One Can Find," and security footage. Sparks debate, where did the boy go? There were podcasts, speculations, think pieces about medical mysteries and the human soul. A fringe YouTuber called Micah, a time traveler. A celebrity pastor claimed it was divine proof that children are closer to God. But to Nathan, the truth was still the same. He'd met a boy who walked barefoot into his daughter's hospital room, spoke only of truth and love, and gave her what no machine or medicine could. And now Lena was awake. But the world wanted something else. Evidence, logic, clarity, and none of that lived in Micah's wake. Lena's voice was still soft. She had trouble forming sentences beyond a few words, but her comprehension was crystal clear. On the third morning of her full consciousness, she turned her head to Nathan and asked, "Where is the boy?" Nathan sat still. "You remember him?" Lena nodded. "He held my hand. He told me you were waiting. He told me you had music again." Nathan swallowed hard. His name was Micah. Is he real? The question hit like a knife, because Nathan knew what she was really asking. Was she losing her mind? Were the dreams her only reality? "Yes," he said simply. "He's real as your breath, as real as this room." She smiled faintly. He was warm. I wasn't scared when he was there. Nathan brushed a strand of hair from her forehead. Neither was I. She took another shallow breath. "Will he come back?" Nathan didn't answer at first. Then he leaned close. "I think Micah comes when people need truth more than comfort." Lena blinked slowly. Then, "Maybe the world needs him now." That afternoon, they were transferred to a smaller private recovery suite. Fewer wires, no more critical monitoring. The staff were kinder here, less clinical, more human. Nathan had insisted on the transfer after another biotech rep tried to get Lena enrolled in a case study without full disclosure. Outside, a cluster of protesters had gathered. Some held signs that read, "Let love heal" and "Where is Micah?" Others chanted about corporate greed, the soul of medicine, and the vanishing of compassion in a world run by machines. A few skeptics mocked it all, filming videos to disprove Micah mania. But most stood quietly, holding candles, photos of their own children, and prayers written on pieces of ribbon. The hospital board was under pressure, not from Elias alone anymore, but from donors and media alike. They wanted answers, control, and they wanted to decide who got to tell Lena's story. Nathan received a call from a major news network, then another, then a publisher offered a six-figure deal for exclusive rights. One network even floated the idea of a docuseries. He said no to all of them. That night, he sat on the windowsill of the recovery suite, guitar in his lap. Lena was asleep again. Samira, the kind nurse, had dimmed the lights and left them alone. Nathan began to play. The song was new, built from fragments of old memories and the rhythm of Lena's heartbeat from the monitor. He sang softly, but each word carried weight, as if stitched from all the quiet things he never said after the accident. But in the middle of the second verse, his voice caught. He looked down and saw his hands trembling. Was he protecting Lena, or hiding behind her recovery to avoid what the world needed to hear? He stood up and walked to the edge of the room, facing the reflection in the window. "What if I tell the truth?" he whispered, "and the world tears it apart?" The silence answered back with a question of its own. What if you stay silent and the truth never gets heard? He stayed up late writing. Not a script, not a statement, just a story, Micah's story. Not how he appeared or disappeared, but how he stood in that room, barefoot, and didn't try to fix anything with noise or theories. How he listened, how he believed, how he asked Nathan to sing not because it would save Lena, but because it would free her. The next day, Samira handed Nathan a small envelope. This came in with the hospital mail. No return address, no postmark. He opened it slowly. Inside was a single folded page. On it, in small handwriting, were 5 words. "You are the echo now." No signature, no explanation. But Nathan knew. He looked at Lena. She was watching him. "Was it from Micah?" she asked. "I think so," he replied. "What does it mean?" He walked to her bedside and sat down. "It means we carry each other's miracles, even when we think the miracle is gone." She reached out and placed her small hand on his. "Then I want to carry his too." That night, Nathan posted a video. He didn't use a production crew, just a phone, a chair, and his voice. He told the full story: Lena's accident, her coma, the quiet nights, the moment Micah entered, the song that changed everything. He didn't try to explain Micah. He didn't speculate. He just told the truth. And then he sang. Not the old wedding song, the new one. The one built from grief and grace and the soft footprints left on a hospital floor. By morning, the video had nearly 3 million views. People commented from all over the world. Nurses, fathers, children who remembered their own impossible moments. People who had no belief left in them until they heard Nathan's voice. He named the channel Echo of Light, and beneath the video, he pinned a comment. Micah was never the point. Belief was. By the 3rd day after the video was posted, Nathan could no longer walk through the hospital lobby without being stopped. Some came to thank him, tears in their eyes. Others held pictures of loved ones in comas, hoping he had more answers than he did. A few just wanted to hear his voice, as if it might wake something in them too. Outside, the quiet crowd had become a gathering. Dozens, then hundreds. Some carried candles. Others held signs that read "Truth Heals," where love walks barefoot. Let them speak. It wasn't a protest. It was a vigil. People sang softly, shared stories, prayed without asking for permission. Security tried to move them along at first, but the hospital's PR department quickly realized it was better to let it happen. Besides, news cameras had arrived. A drone flew overhead, broadcasting the scene live. Nathan saw it all from Lena's recovery window. He stood there for several minutes in silence, watching strangers hold space for something invisible. He whispered to himself, "Micah, what did you start?" Lena spoke behind him, her voice clearer than ever. "You started it too. Daddy." He turned to her. She was sitting up on her own now, wrapped in a soft blue blanket. Her eyes looked steadier. She still tired easily, but her awareness had sharpened like sunlight coming through the fog. "I only told the truth," he said gently. "Exactly," she replied. They spent the next hour packing slowly. Nathan had requested early discharge. Lena's vitals were strong enough. Her brain scans still baffled doctors, but she was lucid, calm, and above all alive. When the attending physician asked why he wanted to leave so soon, Nathan smiled and said, "Because this room isn't home." And Lena's healing started with a song, not a censor. No one tried to argue. Samira helped fold Lena's things into a small rolling bag. She knelt beside her bed afterward, brushing a strand of hair from Lena's face. "You are light, sweetheart," she whispered. "You always were." Lena reached out and hugged her, softly but fully. "Thank you for seeing me." Samira looked at Nathan. "You both changed this place, more than you know." As they left the room, Lena asked to walk down the hallway without a wheelchair. Nathan hesitated, but she gripped his hand firmly. "I want to remember this," she said. So they walked, step by slow step, past the nurses who had whispered their doubts, past the glass doors where Elias once threatened them with silence, past the white walls that had once held only coldness and now felt washed with memory. They reached the front lobby, and then the entrance. The moment the sliding doors opened, Nathan felt it, a wave of warmth. Hundreds of people stood outside the hospital's front gate, not in chaos, but in reverence. When they saw Lena, many lowered their heads, some clapped softly, some simply smiled. Candlelight flickered in the late afternoon wind. And then, one voice began to hum. Nathan didn't know who started it, but the melody was familiar. It was the song he'd sung that night, the song he had written from fragments of pain and faith and memory. More voices joined in. Lena looked up at her father. "Do they know the words?" He shook his head. "No, but they know the feeling." They stood there for a moment, letting it wash over them. Then a woman stepped forward from the crowd. She looked like someone's grandmother. Soft lines in her face, kind eyes. She held out a small notebook. "My grandson is in a coma," she said quietly. "I just wanted you to know. After I watched your video, I stopped being afraid to talk to him." Nathan took the notebook gently. "Keep singing," she said, "even if no one understands it yet." They left the hospital without an escort. Just father and daughter, walking past candles and signs, through whispers and songs. No cameras chased them, no questions were shouted, only silence, and the echo of something much older than words. That night, back at their small apartment, Nathan sat beside Lena's bed. The room was simple, but filled with warmth. A guitar leaned against the wall. A stack of sketchbooks sat on her desk, waiting for her hands to grow strong enough to use them again. Lena looked out the window. "Do you think Micah is watching all this?" Nathan paused. "I think Micah doesn't need to watch. He already knew it would happen." "Why me?" she asked softly. "Why us?" Nathan leaned back. "I used to ask the same thing after your mom died. Why us? Why so young? Why so much pain in a house full of love?" He took a breath. "But maybe the real question is, who are we now that it happened?" Lena nodded slowly. "Do we tell people more?" she asked. "Or do we keep it ours?" Nathan thought about that a long time. Then he said, "We share what's true, but we don't owe anyone the mystery." She smiled. So we tell the music, not the math. He laughed softly. Exactly. The following morning, Nathan uploaded a second video. This time, Lena sat beside him. They didn't talk about Micah. They didn't mention the hospital. Instead, they read letters from viewers' people who had started singing to their unconscious family members, drawing for them, reading poems, cooking their favorite meals and leaving the scent in the air. People who had given up on miracles until something in Nathan's voice changed them. Then Lena took out her sketchbook, her fingers still shaky. She held up a drawing. It was of a barefoot boy standing on what looked like a rooftop, holding a lantern. Above him were stars, each with tiny scribbled names beside them. Nathan recognized one her mother's. The caption read, "Micah didn't give me light. He reminded me I had it." Nathan looked at her, tears forming in his eyes. "You're the light now," he whispered. "No," Lena said. "We are." The first call came from a morning show in New York, then a second from a long-running weekly news feature that had been airing since before Nathan was born. The producers didn't ask, they assumed. They offered first-class tickets, hotel suites, makeup teams. Lena could tell her story. They said, help thousands, maybe millions. Nathan declined them all. He wasn't hiding, but he also wasn't ready to hand Lena's miracle over to people who would cut it into pieces for airtime. But eventually, it wasn't up to him. A letter came by certified mail from the hospital's legal team. Not a threat, a requirement. Because Lena's recovery had happened under an active clinical program. The hospital claimed she was now the primary subject of medical interest in a federally funded study. They were requesting formal interviews, and if Nathan didn't comply, they warned the insurance coverage tied to Lena's aftercare could be reevaluated. He read the letter 3 times, each time. It burned more. "What are they saying?" Lena asked from across the table. Nathan looked up. She was sharper now. Her memory was back. Her eyes didn't float anymore when she asked questions. "They want us to talk," he said carefully. Her fork froze midair. "You mean about Micah? They want to verify what happened, with you, with me, with what they're calling external stimuli inconsistent with neurological expectations." Lena frowned. "So they want to prove I'm impossible, or that Micah is." Lena looked down, then pushed her food aside. "We knew this might happen," she whispered. "We did," Nathan said, his voice quiet. "But I thought maybe, if we just kept telling the truth in our own way. They don't want truth. Daddy, they want ownership." Nathan leaned back, exhaling. "You don't have to do anything. We'll figure something out. I'll get a lawyer." But Lena shook her head. "No, I'll talk to them." Nathan stared at her. "Are you sure?" She nodded slowly. "But I want to choose how and where, and I want to tell them what really matters. Not about science, about kindness." 2 days later, they agreed to meet with a single hospital representative, no cameras, no crew, just one recorder and 2 witnesses. Nathan insisted the meeting happen in their home, not a hospital boardroom. The hospital reluctantly agreed, sending a neurologist named Dr. Morrison and a medical ethicist named Dana Shu. They arrived on a rainy Thursday afternoon. Morrison was older, balding, stiff in posture. Dana was young, calm-eyed, her tone more open than Nathan expected. Lena sat across from them on the living room couch, her sketch pad in her lap. Dana began gently. "Lena, we know this is sensitive. We're not here to challenge your experience. We just want to understand the context." Lena looked at her sketch pad. "He came in barefoot," she said softly. "He didn't knock. He just walked into the room like it belonged to all of us. And he didn't talk for a long time. He just listened." Morrison clicked his pen, writing, and then Dana asked. "He asked my dad to sing." Nathan cleared his throat. "I hadn't sung since my wife's funeral." Dana looked at him. "Why did you stop?" "Because it reminded me of what I lost." "And what changed?" Nathan looked at Lena, then back at Dana. "He reminded me of what I still had." Morrison tapped his pen. "Did the boy touch any machines? Adjust anything?" Lena shook her head. "He just held my hand and told me my father was still music, even when he didn't believe it." Dana raised her eyes, softened by something unsaid. "And what happened next I dreamed again." Lena said, "And then I woke up." Morrison leaned forward. "Do you believe he caused your awakening?" Lena didn't answer right away. Then she said, "No, I think he reminded me how to return." Morrison nodded once, but it was Dana who whispered, "That's beautiful." The interview ended quietly. They left without making declarations, but Nathan could feel something shifting in the air. 3 days later, Dana called. "Your daughter's words moved me," she said. "But the board wants more. They're drafting a release, and likely contacting media next week." Nathan stiffened. "You promised privacy. I advocated for it. But once stories leave the hospital walls, things change." That night, Nathan couldn't sleep. He walked into Lena's room, where she lay drawn by the glow of a soft lamp. "I need to ask you something," he said quietly. She nodded. "What if? What if people don't believe you?" Lena looked up. "They already don't. And if they twist it, if they turn Micah into a hoax, a headline," Lena shrugged. "Then I keep drawing." Nathan sat beside her bed. "I've tried to protect you from all this. I know. But maybe I wasn't protecting you. Maybe I was protecting myself from being the man who didn't have all the answers." Lena smiled faintly. "I don't want all the answers. Daddy, I want real stories, even if they're messy." The next day, Lena asked if they could record a message, just her voice, no cameras. She read from her sketchbook. Her words were simple. "My name is Lena Caldwell. I was asleep for a long time. People say I was supposed to stay asleep, but I didn't. Not because of a miracle, not because of science, because someone reminded me that I mattered." The message spread faster than the first video. Millions listened. Some argued, some accused, but most simply wept. One mother posted a video playing the message next to her son's hospital bed. He didn't wake up, but his hand moved. One nurse started an international letter-writing campaign called Letters for the Sleeping, encouraging families to write one truth every day to the loved ones they feared would never return. And still, Micah didn't return. But his absence was no longer silence. It was space. Space for other people's echoes to rise. It was Lena who first noticed it. The sound outside the window that morning wasn't the usual hum of buses or the bark of neighbors' dogs. It was softer, almost hesitant, like someone gently humming but trying not to be heard. Nathan was making eggs in the kitchen. The window above the sink was cracked open, letting in the late March air. Crisp but kind. Spring had finally come. Not all at once, but in scattered, forgiven pieces. Lena walked to the front door and opened it slowly. A boy stood at the end of the walkway, his hands tucked into the sleeves of an oversized hoodie. The same hoodie Gray, worn thin. Micah. He was smaller than Nathan remembered, or maybe just more human, less like a mystery and more like a boy who had traveled too far for someone his age. He didn't speak. Lena didn't either. She just stepped forward and gently hugged him. No questions, no explanations. Nathan came outside with a towel still slung over one shoulder, and for a moment he simply stared. Micah looked at him and smiled. You remembered the song. Nathan nodded. I never forgot it. I just buried it. Micah tilted his head slightly. It's time to plant it, not bury it. They sat on the porch for a long time, Lena in the middle, their shoulders barely touching. Micah didn't explain where he had gone. Nathan didn't ask. The silence was sacred, unspoken agreement that some stories do not require proof to be real. Eventually, Micah stood and turned to leave, but Lena reached for his hand. Where will you go? He looked down the street, where sunlight draped over pavement like a quiet promise. Where I'm needed. Nathan stood too. Do you ever rest? Micah looked at him, and for the first time, there was a flicker of something ancient in his eyes. Not tiredness, not sadness, just weight, like he had carried too many names, too many whispers, too many songs not yet sung. I rest, he said softly, when someone else begins to listen. Then he turned and walked away. Lena stood on the porch, hand over her heart. The wind lifted slightly, rustling the pages of her sketchbook resting on the porch rail. Later that week, the news cycle changed. Something about a celebrity scandal, a data leak, but the girl who woke had already become something different. Not a headline, a symbol. Hospitals around the country started allowing family members extended visitation for coma patients. Music therapists were hired in places that had never considered them before. Some doctors resisted. Others embraced it. Letters poured into the Caldwell's mailbox. Not fan mail, not curiosity. Letters from parents, nurses, janitors, teenagers, even prisoners. Each one carried a story. A father who read poetry for the first time to his son after years of silence. A woman who sat beside her sister for 10 straight nights, whispering memories from when they were little. A janitor who left sunflowers by the door of every ICU room. None of them mentioned Micah, but all of them echoed him. Nathan and Lena didn't go on talk shows. They didn't sell their story, but they did keep sharing in their own way. Every Sunday evening, Nathan posted a short video called Echo Hour. Sometimes he read letters from others, sometimes he sang. Lena often sat beside him, quietly sketching or reading something of her own. Their viewership didn't explode, but the comment section became a refuge, a place where strangers left voice notes for loved ones who couldn't respond, where people asked for prayers or simply listened to someone else's silence. One night, weeks later, Nathan and Lena sat outside, watching the stars. The old porch light flickered. Do you think he's real? Lena asked quietly. Nathan didn't answer immediately. I think Micah is every person who ever believed love was louder than reason. She smiled. Do you miss him? Nathan leaned back in his chair. Every time I sing. Lena opened her sketchbook. She had drawn a tree with wide, twisting roots and an empty space at its center. What's missing? He asked. She held up the pencil, then wrote a single word in the center. Listen. The next morning, they found a small package on their doorstep. No name, no label, just brown paper, tied with twine. Inside was a folded sheet of music, handwritten. The first bar began with the melody Nathan had sung that night in the hospital, beneath it, in tiny script. For the next voice, there was also a feather, black and gray, smooth, as if plucked from a wing mid-flight. Nathan didn't say anything. He simply closed his eyes and held it to his chest. Later, at the piano, he started to play, not perform, play. The melody shifted, grew, found new roots in his fingertips. Lena sat beside him, humming softly, then singing. There were no cameras, no crowd, just a father and daughter building something invisible but real, the kind of real that can't be televised, only remembered. And maybe that was the point all along. Micah hadn't come to wake Lena. He had come to remind the world how to listen. Sometimes healing doesn't come through medicine or logic or power. Sometimes it walks in barefoot, holding a sketchbook and a name nobody remembers. Lena Caldwell woke up, but what she really awakened was something deeper, a quiet rebellion against a world that forgets the value of listening, of softness, of seeing the humanity in those who have nothing. And Micah. Maybe he wasn't there to perform a miracle. Maybe he was there to remind us that kindness is not a weakness, it's a force. That grief, when shared gently, can become music again. This story reminds us to look beyond appearances, to challenge the systems that treat human lives like data, and to never underestimate the voices society tries to silence. Because dignity should never be earned, it should be honored. And no child should have to walk alone just to be heard. If this story moved you, like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to our channel for more powerful, real-life inspired stories that bring both tears and light. Because next time, it might be your story we tell.